Hola, comrades! Today's topic of interest, Pokémon X and Y. The first Pokémon games on the 3DS, they realized the visual potential of the series. These games are just gorgeous, from the cities, to the moors, to the caves. And that's to say nothing of the 3D models for both Pokémon and trainers. Finally moving away from the two-dimensional sprites that had defined the series since its inception, Pokémon introduced this vivid landscape, and what better place to introduce it with than the land of aesthetics and fashion, France. These were supposed to be the games that took the Pokémon franchise into the modern age. Instead, they ended up the Twilight Princess of the series. What I mean by that is that they were incredibly well received upon initial release, but have had their reputations fade over time. Everyone gawked at their incredible graphics and the overall sheen and presentation, but the lasting impression of the games was not so positive, and reception soon soured, especially when games that were just as beautiful, but much deeper and more story-driven, were introduced in the form of Sun and Moon. That's the caveat to focusing so extensively on graphics. You earn laurels in the short term, but in the long term you lose out, because graphics will improve further, and there will be no reason for the people to revisit your game. Twilight Princess's reputation for being too dark is unearned. Its darkness is not adolescent and profane, but rather pensive and drained. No, it's not fun. It's not supposed to be. It's haunting and mournful. This is a sorrowful land, a land that has exhausted itself of things to believe in, a land that yearns for a brighter future but sees no way that this brighter future could be achieved. I hope to see the day where its reputation is rehabilitated. I don't believe we're there yet, but we will be one day. Pokémon X and Y will not face the same reckoning. If anything, these games will only age increasingly poorly. There are gorgeous spectacles of accomplishment here, don't get me wrong. Prism Tower is one such example. 100 years after its creation, the Eiffel Tower in Paris remains a singular achievement, a testament to both scientific progress and artistic ambition. Surprisingly though, the Pokémon version of it, Prism Tower in Lumio City, is just as impressive. While not feeling detrimentally derivative, it's its own entity, and it's the more impressive for it. However, betwixt these spectacles rests a limp story, paper-thin characters, and a general lack of daring. Below the surface level of polish, this game doesn't push its franchise forward, certainly not compared to Black and White on one side and Sun and Moon on the other. This is best exemplified by the villainous team of Kalos, Team Flare. Their main motivation, money. That's it. Nothing bigger than that. No ideology of Pokemon liberation. No master schemes. Nothing. Yes, they want to create a new world with no one but themselves, but that never seems like a serious belief for most of them. The game certainly doesn't treat this ambition with any sort of gravitas. Mainly, their objective is very simple. Just get rich. Now, I can hear you saying, well, then they're just like Team Rocket. That's not so bad. But you're wrong. They're worse than Team Rocket. Team Rocket is grounded. They're a very traditional Mafia-type organization. They're not exactly the most interesting villainous team, but they're not complete laughingstocks like Team Flare with their ridiculous outfits. I'm not entirely sure what was the intent behind these fools, but whatever it was, it absolutely does not work. They don't have interesting goals like Plasma or Galactic, and they're not gritty and realistic like Rocket. They're not even sympathetically goofy and clownish like Team Skull. They're very boring. They feel hollow, like the minimum amount of work possible went into creating them. However, Team Flare also have another focus. One that ties in both with their emphasis on money and with their ridiculous outfits. Fashion. Admittedly, their fashion is garish at best, but the concept of fashion and of expression through style in general runs through Kalos. In fact, it is the most memorable aspect of these games, and something that the developers absolutely, undoubtedly got right. This is the region that introduced trainer customization, a feature that series diehards have been waiting for ever since the original Game Boy games. That in of itself would not make this game special. After all, the feature was carried over to Sun and Moon, and it has also been the staple of RPGs, particularly those developed in the West, for decades. What makes X and Y different is how the entire game is focused around self-expression. More than the other games in the series, X and Y are focused on the experience of you, the player. One of my favorite little features about these games is how you get to choose a nickname for your friends, Shauna, Trevor, Tierno, and either Calum or Serena, to call you. It's really nothing. It shouldn't matter, but it does, at least to me. And that's a little personal touch that other games of the series do not have. That's the word I'd use to describe this game. Personal. These are the games that introduced super training, a feature that was tedious and annoying, and thankfully not carried over to Sun and Moon, but a feature that nonetheless gave the majority of Pokemon trainers their first real gaze into the EV system, which had previously belonged only to those in the know. This is the game where you can fight specific trainers in sky battles, where both trainers can only use specific levitating or flying Pokemon. Is it ridiculous? Kind of. Is it unnecessary? Absolutely. There's a reason this mechanic was dropped after X and Y, but there's something appealing about it nonetheless. These are also the games that gave us Mega Evolution, which sounds like and works like something you came up with when you were 8 years old and had just finished watching an episode of Digimon. Again, the focus is on the personal. You get to choose which of your Pokemon can Mega Evolve. Will it be Mewtwo or Ampharos? This is a prime example of game balancing, of course, but there's also something very intimate about it. Like Nintendo decided to make the dreams of your childhood come to life so that you could have the best experience possible with these games. And the whole focus being only on one Pokemon in your party actually furthers that. Are these minute changes enough to make up for the game's major lapses in story, characterization, plot, and world building? No. Are they enough to excuse the dreadful lack of innovation or creative spark? No. But they add to more than the sum of their parts. I don't think anyone remembers trainer PR videos, a very intensely silly gimmick that allows players to make a short clip of themselves for promotional purposes, using a very limited set of effects and music and poses. It's absolutely unnecessary, but there's a certain kitschy charm to it, and it's yet another example of X and Y focusing on customization. It's at least an attempt to personalize the player's experience, and I appreciate that. Now, this all does not necessarily add up to a compelling game. X and Y marked a lot of firsts for the series, what with the introduction of a new type, Fairy, for the first time since Generation 2, and of course, the jump into 3D. But the core gameplay experience is rather lacking. Of all the core Pokemon games, these have the least replayability. However, the heart of the games is style, and that they understand very well. They understand that style is not merely about what clothes you wear, but the version of yourself you want to present to the world. Style at its best is exceedingly personal. Are you practical, cool, cute, callous, nostalgic, apathetic, over the top? However you want to present yourself, your style can project that to the world. Pokemon X and Pokemon Y understand this, and that same spirit carries through the entire story and into the post-game. For that, at least, I must commend these games. I do have to admit that not until I wrote this script did I realize how much I dislike these games. It's not that they're bad. There are no outright bad main series Pokemon games. They're just so uninspired. There's nothing interesting in here. Nothing even remotely challenging or thoughtful or subversive. Pokemon has never been The Last of Us or even The Legend of Zelda. But other entries at least brought something new to the table and dared to move the series forward. These games are a step back in every way imaginable. I will also say, as someone who has been to France, that they did a terrible job of capturing the country. They're working off the romanticized version of the nation, which in of itself is fine and to be expected, but they don't add anything to it, and they don't even completely commit themselves to it. They only go halfway. Black and White understood New York City and the surrounding area, and did their best to incorporate it, and America as a whole into the Pokemon world. X and Y did not do the same thing with France. Their version of it is an inchoate, platitude-filled mess. However, there's a lot to like about these games. More than any other games in the series, they exemplify the idealistic worldview that runs through this franchise. When you defeat the Elite Four and the champion, you're rewarded with a genuinely beautiful poem. I will post a link to it in the description. Anyway, if you liked what you saw today, consider donating to my Patreon so I can produce even more stylish content. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that urbane stuff. Adios, comrades!